Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Raed Abudaye. I am the cloud lead for emerging markets at Palo Alto Networks. And I'm joined today with Vikram Raghavan, who is the product specialist for the Meta region with our partners Ingram Micro. Today we're going to cover how Palo Alto Networks helps organizations securely enable public and private clouds. Before we start, we would like to just cover some of the basic terminologies in the industry. And I do apologize if some of this sound repetitive, but the objective here is just to familiarize everybody on the call with some of the basic concepts in the public cloud space. The first one on the list is the pay-as-you-go, which is basically a licensing option. It's an option based on consumption that you today can get from the likes of AWS or Azure Marketplace. Bring your own license is another option for licensing for basically software that can be deployed in AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. The third one on the list is the marketplace for Amazon and Microsoft, for example. And this is basically the online store where customers can go online and purchase cloud services. Big or born in the cloud is a terminology which for today's seminar, we will basically define as partners who operate in the cloud space or exclusively in the cloud space, where they provide their customers with solutions and services purely in the cloud. Software-defined network or SDN. An example of that would be VMware NSX. And there are others as well in the market. It's basically an environment where the network is virtualized. You're talking about components such as firewalls, routers, load balancers, etc. A software-defined data center or SDDC is basically a data center that is pretty much driven by software-defined or virtualized environments across the entire data center. So that includes compute, networking, etc. Amazon VPC and Microsoft VNet are basically the virtual environments in the cloud. So this is more or less very similar to an on-premise environment, but it's a virtual environment that lives in the cloud. So for example, you can have your application servers, you can have your database servers, you can have users, etc. But instead of having them on-premise, they live in either an AWS environment or a VNet environment. All right, so let's quickly go over the evolution of IT environments. I'm going to take you back, 20 plus years ago. I think there are people on the call who are probably or many of the people on the call are probably much, much younger than I am. But back in the days, and we're talking here maybe 90s, when an organization wanted to protect its headquarters or its major facilities from a user's applications network perspective, typically what they would do is they would put a firewall, a physical firewall that they would put in place at the headquarters. And that took care of users who were using their desktops or servers or the network that organization had. And as organizations start lending out laptops for their users to use at home, now you have a new challenge that was presented to the security managers or the security personnel who were responsible for protecting an environment, and that environment just got expanded to people homes or employee homes or wherever they use their laptops. So you definitely got a productivity increase by giving somebody a laptop and have them work from home. But you also now have exposed that laptop to an environment that may or may not be as well protected as the headquartered office. And as companies grew and their business got bigger, they now had smaller branches in different areas. It could be in the same country, it could be across the globe, where those branches now needed to be protected. So added another dimension of security challenges. So you're now not worried about headquarters only, but you have people with laptops and you have people with branch offices that also needed to be protected. And with the evolution of virtualized software, more and more companies started investing into solutions in the private cloud that would help them maximize the return of the investment that they are spending on the compute aspect of what they do. So, you saw a lot of deployments when it came to virtualizing desktops or virtualizing servers or even storage. That again presented a new area of a challenge for the security managers of that organization. And as more and more users are now using the SaaS applications or public cloud providers, those two introduced yet other dimensions that didn't exist maybe 20 years ago that now a security manager has to worry about. So for you as a partner of Palo Alto Networks, if you go talk to most of your customers, chances are that they have an environment similar to this, that they have a headquarter office, they have people who either are using a BYOD or they're using an IoT or they're using something that they bring into work and they take home. Chances are the company could be big enough to have branches. They may have something virtualized on premise, and they could be using some aspect of the cloud. It could be a SaaS, it could be a public cloud provider. But chances are a lot of your customers today, a lot of the environments of your customers today will look something very similar to what you have here. And the challenge that security managers have is, the hackers don't really care much about where your data lives, whether it's on-premise or on the cloud. The black hats or the bad guys are really location agnostic. For them, a data center is a data center. And for them, the cycle of attack is pretty much the same, whether they are attacking a cloud environment or attacking an on-premise or physical environment. So it starts always with getting a user to either click on something they shouldn't click on or go to a malicious website, or exploit the machine through exploit kits, etc. And once that user becomes infected, then you start having serious damage. Yeah. So after the infection of the user, you start getting lateral movement across the network. The hacker would eventually establish a command and control with the infected machines and start looking for areas to exploit further within the organization network. And most likely they're going to infect the data center. And once the data center is infected, they now have access to a lot of confidential and private data that they could use for whatever their objective is. This cycle is pretty much the same cycle, whether we're talking about a cloud or a virtualized environment versus an on-premise environment. So the hackers don't really care where the data is or where the users are. For them, they're location agnostic when it comes to data centers. So for them, whether it's on-premise or on the cloud, at the end of the day, they can use pretty much the same methods and the same life cycle is going to apply to that attack, irrespective of where the data lives. So if I am in charge of security now and I had the environment we talked about earlier, now I have to worry about protecting my users, applications, and content everywhere. I have to protect it in my headquarters. I have to go protect those remote users who could be using their devices at home or in coffee shops or at the airports. I have to go and protect my branch offices. And if I'm deploying any kind of a private cloud on premise, I also have to worry about that and make sure that my VM to VM traffic is being monitored and inspected, that my virtualized or my micro-segmented environment is also being protected. Onwards to the SaaS environment. So if I'm using Salesforce.com or if I'm using Office 365, again, we as an organization that's protecting the users, I have to make sure that I'm also providing a solution for those cloud users as well, whether they're using a SaaS or a public cloud. And the interesting thing here is you have different form factors when it comes to where the users are and what they are using. So typically in a headquarter environment, you're talking about physical firewalls, you're talking about software agents, you're talking about maybe VMs. When you talk about endpoints, talking mainly about software agents that could live on the endpoint to protect the device. As you move on to SaaS, it becomes more of an API hook solution that your SaaS environment will be connected to make sure that you protect that environment, in addition to virtualized firewalls. So as you look across this, security managers today have to go and make sure that irrespective of the form factor, they want to provide security to their users wherever they are. And the way that a lot of organizations are doing this today is they're going to different companies to get protection. So there are a lot of point solutions that are basically deployed, whether at the headquarter office or the branches or mobile users, all the way up to SaaS and public cloud. So typically somebody who's providing an on-premise solution is not, or most likely is not, the same vendor who's providing that customer with a SaaS security solution or a public cloud security solution. What we have seen talking to a lot of customers is who they use for their network or their on-premise stuff may or may not be the same vendor that they use to protect their endpoints. And the same thing applies to their SaaS and cloud security. So what you can end up having is different vendors protecting different areas of the customer environment. And if I'm a security manager, my biggest challenge would be how do I actually get all these point solutions to work together and to basically automate my security and provide consistent security across my entire enterprise. So that is the challenge that a lot of our customers are facing today with the environments we just described. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about who is Palo Alto Networks and why would you partner with Palo Alto Networks to go and address the security objectives of your customers. So real quick, we were founded in 2005. Today we have over 45,000 customers across the globe. 85% of the Fortune 100 companies trust us to provide them with security for their enterprises. Today we are present in almost 65% of the global 2000. We have been a leader in the Gartner Magical Quadrant for Enterprise Next Generation Firewalls for the last 5 years in a row. We are, a $2 billion company with almost 29% year-on-year growth, and we have been consistently recognized by the likes of J.D. Power and TCIA, who are providing exceptional global support to our customers. And today we employ more than 4,200 employees worldwide. And in this region, we have upwards of 40 plus professionals who are based out of the emerging markets, and specifically the area here in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates that cover the region. All right, so let's talk about some of the philosophy that we have when it comes to protecting customers' environment. We have 4 key areas that for us represent the foundation of how do you protect an environment. And for us, it all starts with complete visibility. Yeah. So the first thing that we tell our customers is you obviously cannot protect what you cannot see. So what we provide customers with is technology, security solutions, and a platform that provides them with complete visibility of all the applications, all the users, all the endpoints, all the mobile users and SaaS usage in their environment. So they start with a list of here is what we have, yeah, here is what we have from all aspects of the customer environment. And once we define the list of all the applications and all the users that the customers might have, then we start saying, okay, how can we now go protect the stuff that we should worry about? So the next step in this would be to reduce what we call the attack surface area. So reducing the attack surface area is basically a concept where you say, okay, I'm only going to worry about the business applications that I want to use. I want to block everything else. Yeah, I want to block all the bad applications. I want to block all the unknown users. I want to block anything that is basically a malicious website or a high-risk website, etc. So you start actually reducing the things that you want to protect, and you block everything else. And then you get the second or the third step, which is basically preventing all known threats for that reduced attack surface. So you look for things like exploits, malware, command and control, and malicious websites, and you protect that shortlisted environment against known threats. And then finally, you deploy our industry-leading technologies and security platform to help you prevent unknown attacks. So we believe if you complete this cycle, we believe we have a very good chance of preventing a successful attack on a customer environment. So this is basically our security philosophy. This is the four key pillars where we think that if you're successful at doing all four, you have a very good chance of stopping malicious attacks. So we talked about a typical customer environment that you would be facing today, and we talked about how a lot of your customers' environments would look something like this. So if you look at where we provide our security solutions and technologies, it's pretty much across that entire environment. So what we offer customers is basically consistent security that can be applied irrespective where the users are, irrespective where the applications are. The end objective here is to make the CISO's job, or the security job much easier at managing the security aspects of their environment, whether it's on premise or in the cloud, and whether it's a remote user, whether it's a branch office. The objective here is irrespective of the form factor, whether it's a software agent on endpoints, whether it's a physical firewall in headquarters, whether it's a VM or a virtual firewall in the cloud, customers can always trust Palo Alto Networks to provide them with that consistent security wherever their users or applications are. Moving on to basically our, this is the closest you're going to see probably from a product slide from me. So this is what we describe as our security platform. And it all started, as we said, it all started with protecting the physical environments of customers with our physical firewalls. And now that network security includes things like our Global Protect solution, which protects remote users or those users with an IT device or a laptop. And we introduced recently our Global Protect cloud service, where remote users can actually use IPsec tunnel to log into a cloud security environment where we can protect them wherever they are. Moving on to protecting an endpoint with our next generation endpoint solution, Traps. So Traps is basically a software agent that lives on the endpoints and help extend the security to the endpoints of our customers. Onwards to our cloud security with our VM series and Aperture offering that help customers protect their SaaS environment or a public cloud environment like AWS or Azure. So, the first thing that we delivered to our customers was a consistent security that they can apply across their entire enterprise. And what a lot of customers came back to us with was, this is really great. This is awesome. Now my life is much easier of actually managing my enterprise through one vendor solution. But there are a lot of those new technologies, innovative companies that are actually out there that customers would like to use, and they would like to integrate that with our security solutions. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of innovative companies who are coming up with great technologies that help customers complement their security strategy. And integrating with every single one of them is a complex thing, and it's almost impossible for any vendor to do. So what we came up with was okay, so how can our customers take advantage of those innovative technologies and great vendors who are coming up with new stuff to help customers protect their environments? And the way we did it was we said, okay, so if we can protect the customer network endpoints and cloud, we can get the logs of these devices, whether it's a network firewall or an agent or a VM series or an API hook. And we can store those logs in our cloud and then provide third-party vendors or applications with access to those logs so they can actually go and analyze the data coming from the customer environment, irrespective of what it is, and complement what we offer the customer from a security perspective with those new technologies or innovative ideas that those third-party vendors might have. Today, we have 30 of those creative, innovative vendors who are part of our application framework. And recently, we introduced our first Palo Alto Networks application framework service, which is Magnifier. So Magnifier is a great product that takes advantage of our logging service, which is basically where the customer logs are stored, and analyzes the data there and looks for behavior analysis of the different components of the customer environment to even provide more security to that customer and more security analysis and automation for that customer. So in a nutshell, with our application framework, today we provide the customers with a cool concept that helps them, strengthen their security posture and get them as close to their optimal objective of providing security to their end users as possible. Okay, so moving on to what are the key products of our cloud offering. And for the sake of time, I'm going to just cover our VM series today. But we do have a lot more than just the VM series firewalls. We have Aperture that helps customers protect their SaaS environments, sanctioned SaaS applications. We have Autofocus, we have logging services, Global Protect Cloud Services, Magnifier, and MindMeld. And we will cover these in future webinars. But the focus of today's webinar will be on VM series firewalls, which are basically the virtual firewalls that we sell, and how they integrate with Azure. So that will be our focus. So our VM series, basically, we talked about our philosophy when it comes to security. So VM series is basically an extension of that. And with our VM series firewalls, we can, provide customers with all the 4 pillars we talked about earlier. So, it's as if they actually own a physical device. So they get complete visibility over their apps, users. Then we can block all the bad apps, limit access to malicious websites. Then we move on to preventing all threats, known threats, that is. And finally, we help the customer detect and prevent new threats. So again, it delivers, on our philosophy, and it's a key component of our offering. And today, our VM series lineup goes all the way up from the VM50, which is a 200 megabits per second, all the way up to the VM700, which is a 16 gigabits per second firewall. And for the sake of today's discussion, the VM50 is not supported on Azure, so it has to start from the VM100 upwards. And we'll talk about that shortly in the subsequent slides. All right, so moving on to the Microsoft Azure and our VM series deployment in Azure. So before we actually talk about Azure and Microsoft, I wanted to share with you just a recent research that was done by Gartner to get an understanding of why organizations do not move or do not consider public cloud for their mission-critical applications. So if you look at the first reason or the top reason why a lot of these organizations are not considering a move to the cloud, security is right on the top. Yeah, so security and privacy concerns, drive a lot of the reasons why customers today don't really want to move their mission critical or actually their applications or workloads to the cloud. So keep that in mind when you're talking to customers. A lot of these customers probably share the same concerns, as they're worried if I actually give it to somebody else, or if I give my data to somebody else, how well is it protected from attacks? We talked about that the attacker doesn't really care whether the data or the applications are on premise or in the cloud. So um, if we get to address that specific area, then we definitely going to help the customers move more of their workloads to the cloud, because now they trust that the cloud environment you are providing or the public clouds are providing is well protected. So the key objective at the end of this call is we would like to help you as a partner of Palo Alto Networks drive that confidence level factor with your customers, so they can start using and consuming their cloud services with their cloud provider, and obviously buying more services from you in the process. Okay, this is actually a screenshot from one of Microsoft's documentation online, and it talks about a shared responsibility model. And the shared responsibility model is not actually limited to just Microsoft. A lot of the public cloud providers today have a similar model as well. And what it is basically, it defines who's responsible for the protection of what, or who's responsible for what, basically. So if you look at the graph at the right-hand side, everything that is dark blue, that is basically the cloud provider responsibility. Everything in light blue is basically the cloud customer responsibility. So if you look at things, let's start at the bottom. So if you look at things like physical security of on-premise, that's obviously the customer responsibility. As you move into SaaS or PaaS or any public cloud offering, now that becomes the cloud provider responsibility to provide physical security to their data centers. So physical security, if it's on-prem, it's the customer. If it's with a public cloud provider like Microsoft, it becomes a Microsoft responsibility. As you move through these and you start looking at the first two on the list, which is data classification and accountability, client and endpoint protection, and as you can see on this specific chart, that is all of it is the cloud customer responsibility. So the customer at the end of the day is responsible for making sure that their endpoints are protection, their data is classified, and they are accountable for all of that. And it's their responsibility to manage that security. Yeah. So it's a key differentiator between who is responsible for what, and it's a key discussion item to have with your customers when it comes around security. So let's talk about the different deployment scenarios where customers with Azure can deploy our firewalls. The first one is obviously where a customer has a hybrid data center environment where they have a physical data center on premise, and they have a cloud environment with Microsoft Azure. So in this case, it's a hybrid data center, and you deploy basically the firewall to protect and safely deploy your applications, whether in the data center or in the cloud. So you're basically extending the security and the safe enablement of apps and users from the physical data center to the Microsoft Azure environment. The next one is basically where a lot of customers are segmenting their public cloud environments, in this case VNet or VNets, and they can use our virtualized firewall series, VM series, to protect that segmented area, and to make sure that we separate data, we separate, for example, database from web, etc., for improved security and obviously compliance, specifically for the financial sector. Another case scenario or case where VM series can be used in the cloud is basically as a pure internet gateway. So you can protect a VNet environment or your applications from hackers. So you can use a VM series in that capacity, or you can actually use it as a global protect device to make sure that you are providing consistent security to your remote users who are dialing into your cloud environment. So those are very common deployment scenarios for Azure. So, we talked about the hybrid environment. This is basically more or less just a snapshot of how it would look like. So you would deploy, a VM series that more or less just moves or maintains the consistent security posture that you have on premise to your VNet environment. This is, the deployment scenario where it's basically an internet gateway protecting your database servers or your VNet environments from the external world. Global Protect is, you give the chance to all of your remote users to basically dial in safely and use the cloud environment while being protected by a Palo Alto Networks firewall. One of the key drivers for public vendors to basically get out of their public cloud services is consumption. Yeah, so consumption basically means that customers are using the services that they bought from those public providers. And for you as a partner of Palo Alto Networks, getting the customer to consume more of the Azure services, for example, is a win-win situation for everybody. Yeah. So as a partner, you will get the customer to move more of their workloads to the cloud where you can sell them additional services. And also as that customer starts consuming more of that business, it's obviously a win-win situation for Microsoft, for you as a partner, as well as the customer, who can now move and leverage the scalability and the nice features that Azure services provide. So this is a case study that we share with a lot of our customers of a Palo Alto Networks customer who actually purchased Azure services, and they worked with us to deploy a proof of concept toward January 2017, and they eventually made a purchase in April, and they deployed their firewall toward the end of May. And what I would like you to notice is the vast difference in consumption between the environment prior to the customer trying our solutions and eventually buying them versus after they have deployed our solutions. So you can see a huge uptick in consumption from the time that the customer actually deployed the firewall versus say June 2016, when they almost consumed none of the services that they bought. So obviously the consumption is very important, and the key thing that we will help you drive with customers is we want to build that confidence with the customers that by moving or having Palo Alto Networks protect their cloud environment, they can feel good about the security and privacy of their data, and feel good about how well it's being protected by the industry leader in this space, and move more of their workloads to those Azure environments. So obviously that means more business for you. Customers will also love the fact that they're leveraging Azure services to improve their productivity, sales, etc. And it is, as I said, a win-win for everybody involved. One of the use case scenarios that today are using Palo Alto Networks to protect an Azure environment is Microsoft. So Microsoft uses our next generation firewalls today as an IPS to protect some of their Azure environments as we speak. So we're very proud to have Microsoft be a customer of ours. We're also very, very proud to have Microsoft be a strategic and a global partner of Palo Alto Networks, where we collaborate to provide Microsoft Azure customers with security solutions across the globe. This is a copy of the, actually it's a screenshot of the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, and where you can buy Palo Alto Networks. So as you can see on here, customers have two choices. They have basically two bundles, and they are both pay-as-you-go bundles. The first one is the bundle one, which basically includes our IPS, our antivirus, malware prevention, and premium support. So this is all in one license, and today it's available on Azure Marketplace via an hourly consumption model. The second bundle is basically everything we mentioned before, in addition to wildfire and web filtering. So customers get more security services, and it's also available on an hourly consumption model from Microsoft. You can also, as we mentioned, bring your own license. And we'll talk briefly about the difference between bring your own license versus a marketplace. With the exception of the VM50, you can use the VM100 or the VM300 or the 500 in an Azure environment to protect your Azure environment, and you can buy that license through a traditional, or your customers can buy that license through a traditional purchase, which is basically through you as a channel partner, through our Desti. They can select which VM series they would like to buy, and they can also select the subscriptions and the support plans that they also would like. And they can use the authorization code to deploy it in an Azure environment. So, it will operate and it will function exactly like the marketplace firewall, but the customers have options to basically select a different VM series model if they would like, or a different subscription or support plans to match their needs. The pay-as-you-go approach is basically two bundles that are available on a consumption hourly subscription basis from Azure Marketplace. The first bundle is, like we said, the IPS, the antivirus and anti-spyware, which is what we call threat prevention, and premium support. And the second bundle is everything else in addition to URL filtering and wildfire. Now, one keynote here to also highlight, on Marketplace, there's only one VM series model available, and that is the VM300. While on Bring Your Own License, you can select from different VM series lineup. For customers who are actually using many of our VM series to protect their environments, we provide the VM series enterprise license agreement, which makes it very, very easy for customers to basically use our firewalls and manage them. We provide all subscriptions as well as our Panorama, which is our central management device. So customers can actually use Panorama to manage their entire firewall farm. And they can use a single authorization code basically to manage all the firewalls across all clouds. So you don't have to buy an individual authorization code for every firewall that you buy. You basically, if you have 50 firewalls, you use a single authorization code for all of these. And that pretty much covers everything we wanted to talk about today. We will be very happy to handle any questions or actually answer any questions you might have. So I would encourage you to use the chat window on your screen, or you can actually email either Vikram at Ingram Micro or myself, and I will shoot you my email right after the webinar. Feel free to let us know of any questions you may have, and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much again for being with us today. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you soon again. Thank you.